Hello, I'm Keith Hocton, author, historian, and host of Rearview Mirror Chronicles, where we take a look back at the people and the moments that shaped our world through history. Hello. One of the questions that comes in on a fairly regular basis is the Great Stink. What's the truth behind it, and what happened, and did it really take place? And I get it, because even the name sounds biblical, like one of the lesser known, plagues of Egypt: frogs, locusts, boils, and then apparently London. But in the summer of 1858, that's exactly what happened. It was at that stage the richest city on earth, the capital of the British Empire, very nearly suffocating in its own filth. The Thames had effectively become an open sewer. And I don't mean metaphorically, literally, it was an open sewer. Every day, hundreds of thousands of tons of human waste, animal carcasses, slaughterhouse blood, industrial chemicals, rotting food, and general refuse was dumped directly into the river. London at that stage was also expanding at a terrifying speed. Nearly 3 million people packed into a city whose medieval infrastructure had never been designed for anything, remotely like that population. And of course, like the stars aligning, then came the summer heat wave. The river level dropped, the sewage thickened, the sun baked the filth, and the smell rose over London like a poison fog. People described it at the time as completely unbearable, and they were leaving for the countryside in droves. Just imagine rotting meat, tons of it, mixed with sulfur and excrement and stagnant water, and of course, death itself. One observer actually said the smell was so overpowering, it felt solid, as if you could almost touch it. Even Parliament couldn't escape it. Westminster, as you know, sits directly beside the River Thames, and MPs reportedly soaked curtains in chloride of lime in a desperate attempt to block the stench drifting into the debating chambers. Benjamin Disraeli, Prime Minister at the time, described the Thames as a stagnant pool, invoking the river of the underworld, kind of from Greek mythology. And of course, newspapers called it a fermenting sewer. And I think what makes it even more extraordinary is this: London had already been warned. The city had suffered repeated cholera epidemics. There were tens of thousands of people who had died, 30,000 actually, on the third cholera outbreak. Entire neighborhoods were devastated. And if you think about it, 30,000 people, that's actually 1% of the city being wiped out because of a particular disease in 1858. But I also have to say, Victorian medicine still lived in a very, very kind of strange halfway world between science and superstition. Germ theory didn't yet dominate medicine, and most senior doctors, actually the most senior doctors in the country, believed that disease spread through misema, poisonous bad air. If something smelled foul, they assumed the smell itself carried the disease. Now, cholera's not especially smelly. It's just not. But the disease actually spreads through contaminated water. But cholera flourishes exactly where sanitation collapses, where sewage contaminant wells and rivers, and of course drinking supplies. So people kept linking terrible smells with terrible death. And in their mind, smell was actually the killer. And oddly enough, that misunderstanding is what absolutely saved London. Because by 1858, the smell became so politically impossible to ignore that Parliament finally acted. Suddenly, money appeared where there was none before. Suddenly, urgency appeared. Suddenly, the government realized that perhaps allowing millions of people to dump sewage into the very same river that they drank from wasn't an ideal long-term strategy. Go figure. And into this nightmare stepped one of the great forgotten heroes of Victorian Britain, even now, an engineer by the name of Joseph Basgalet. Basgalet designed what was effectively the circulatory system of a modern city. Thousands upon thousands of miles of underground sewers, massive brick intercepting tunnels running beneath London itself, vast pumping stations that looked almost like cathedrals of industry, new embankments along the Thames. It's one of the reasons why the embankment was built. New roads, new bridges. Putney Bridge was actually one of them. Entire hidden rivers redirected beneath the city streets. And for those of you who don't know, there was actually a river originally in Fleet Street called the Fleet. Well, that river is now actually buried beneath the roads above it. This was one of the largest civil engineering projects I think ever attempted anywhere in the world. The Victoria Embankment transformed the riverfront. Putney Bridge, as I just mentioned, and other crossings expanded alongside these works. Entire sections of London were actually rebuilt around the new sewer network. Beneath the city, suddenly an invisible machine was quietly carrying waste away from human beings for the first time in history on such a scale. And I think the astonishing thing is this. Much of Basgalet's system still works today. It's still functioning today. Modern London still depends on Victorian brick tunnels laid down during that 1858 crisis. And I think there's also a wonderfully strange historical footnote to all of this. Basgalet's great-great-grandson would later become associated with Endemol, one of the world's largest television production companies, creators of programs like Big Brother. So the family that once saved London from sewage eventually found itself pumping sewage of a different form directly back into Britain's living rooms. History does occasionally have a sense of humor. Thanks for listening in, folks, and thank you for sending the questions in. Bye for now.